Welcome back to the show. Check out these headlines. We know there's a lot of talk about a U.S. corporation bankruptcy. How about this? United Nations bankrupt too? Oh, we got that and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, $1.08 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 0.5%. Good morning, everyone. 26,100 plus for Bitcoin, 1,500 and change for Ethereum right now. Tether market cap is 83.1 billion plus, and we still don't know how the U.S. government really feels about it. Isn't that odd? It should be to you, because it is to me. XRP, 50 cents right here. It's up 0.6% in the 24-hour and off by 1.7 on the 7-day. Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow night I want to invite you to the Digital Perspectives Mastermind Group weekly private call. You're going to want to be a part of that. We're going to discuss DeFi and staking. We take on topics like this every week to get a further deep dive into the information and really helping ourselves learn how to focus on where we're going with our investments and our portfolio. This is one of the topics that's meant a lot to this group, and I know it means a lot to a lot of people hearing this right now. Take advantage of the 3-day free trial and join us tomorrow night for that call. You're going to love it. A lot of incredible people inside that group. Make sure you check it out. And really quickly before we get started here, it's Miles Franklin. It is the best opportunity to get precious metals, physical gold in your hands if you do it right now with the email and the phone number I'm providing underneath this video. But you've got to use the code DIGGOLD. Tell them Digital Perspectives Brad Kimes sent you. Use the code DIGGOLD to get the absolute best prices on gold. And believe me, they're running specials right now. And very quickly right now, I want to let you know that they have 1/4 ounce gold coins right now, $59 over spot. They got 1/10 gold coins right now for $39 over spot. And a special going on right now for British sovereign coins. This is what I'm talking about. The best place to get gold, physical gold in your hands. Check it out. Make sure you tell them Dig Gold, Brad Kimes sent you. All right, right here, it's David Schwartz who says, once again, what validators do for the XRP ledger. This is very short, but it's key, and I think we all should want to know how this works. So this is what David Schwartz says here. There is one and only one way to interact with the XRP ledger, and that's through a node. If you interact with the XRP ledger and don't run a node, someone else is running a node for you that you are interacting with, and you are, at least to some extent, trusting that person. Don't want to trust anyone? Run your own node. All XRP ledger state is public. All transactions are public. All transaction rules are public. If your node isn't broken, it knows these 3 things. Your node doesn't need validators to tell you it will, or your node doesn't need validators to tell it what transactions are valid. It already knows that itself. Your node doesn't need validators to tell what transactions to do. It can work that out for itself. All honest nodes will automatically agree on these things because they are system rules. The problem you can't solve without validators is the double spend problem. Someone can submit 2 equally good but conflicting transactions to the network, and you need some way to agree on which of them to permit and which to reject. Note that there is no particular reason anyone should care which transaction succeeds and which fails. We just need to agree because otherwise the system would break. That is literally the only reason XRP Ledger needs validators, to break ties, to allow honest nodes to stay in agreement about who holds what assets in the case of equally valid but conflicting transactions. For convenience, XRP Ledger uses validators for other things too, particularly coordinating the activation of network features, but this is not a governance function. Validators cannot force nodes to accept features they are unwilling to accept. How about that? That's a nice little refresher on that right there. Shout out to David for that information. Now, let's start here because BRICS, we know, is getting bigger, and it is also increasingly looking to diversify its portfolios throughout the countries inside of BRICS with gold, local currencies, and other commodities such as oil and gas. BRICS dumped $18.9 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds just this month. But it gets scarier. Oh, it gets scarier. Let's get down into it. Just this month. But here's what's happened in the 2023 year. BRICS has offloaded $122.7 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds and is staying away from the government's debt. What does that tell you? BRICS member China is highest as it offloaded $117.4 billion worth of U.S. government debt this year. Between June and July, China reduced its holdings from $835.4 billion to $821.8, a decline of 13.6. The list goes on and on. You see what's happening. You know, the proof is in the real action taken, not just the words, but the real action taken. Well, we got more to look at here because while that's happening, there is a race in the digital world to tokenize U.S. Treasury bills and to claim that ground that has yet to be claimed. Take a listen.
And that's probably why there's like, you said like there's over like 10 companies in a race. It reminds me of the stablecoin wars of 2017 that have been ongoing to this day. But now there's like the on-chain T-bills race, the race to be the liquid T-bill. So this kind of feels like an evolution of stablecoins, right? We have United States, we have Tether, the Wild West unregulated stablecoin. Then you have like the teacher's pet stablecoin, which is USDC. And now we have this next evolution in the war of stablecoins, which is on-chain T-bills, which is where we are in crypto history today. Is that right?
Exactly.
There you have it right there. So the race is on to tokenize these things, even though the BRICS coalition is shedding the paper products at the moment. Well, there will be an inflection point coming at some point, and the event where everything changes, a lender of last resort. Listen to here as William Middlecoop speaks to Daniela Cambone here. Shout out to Black Swan Capitalist for this clip.
You will get a gold revaluation by market forces or by design by central banks because they need it to fix their balance sheets.
Central banks have awakened to the need for gold?
No, it's not waking up. They always knew in that toolbox they could use a gold revaluation, but they don't talk about that only when it's really needed, only when you reach the point that there's no other tool they can use to fix it.
Right.
And there you have it right there. Shout out to both of them. And what may bring that on? Well, here's the U.S. debt clock. Now, I reminded people the other day, I remind you today, this is not a government-run site. However, the numbers and the information pulled is from the Federal Reserve and other government sites like the U.S. Treasury. Like that, you can see the source of that information at the top of the screen. You'll see it right here in this area. If you look, when you go there, the source is the U.S. Treasury, right? This comes from the Congressional Budget Office. So you can see all this information. What I want to highlight here is that under money creation, we see the USA Treasury dollars 2025. So we're not seeing the Federal Reserve note on here. I'm not finding it anywhere. And I find that to be interesting because that's the dollars you and I have in our pocket today, right? Well, the USA Treasury dollars 2025 is at 1.5 trillion at the moment. You have to wonder, what is it that they are suggesting here? Are they suggesting that there is going to be a change of currency, a repatriation of funds to a USA Treasury dollar opposed over a Federal Reserve note? What kind of moment are we headed towards? What would that look like if that happened? Look, I firmly believe that we've reached a point of insolvency. I think the world knows that we can't pay it back. I think the signal that the BRICS is dumping the bonds is the understanding from their point of view that we can't pay it back. The line in the sand, in the financial sand, is confidence. You will not get an email when that confidence is lost. You will just find out because you are in the throes of a full-on collapse of hyperinflation. How long do we have? Is it a year? Is it 5? Is it not a threat at all? Is it within the next month or two? I don't know the answer. But what I do know is if my house was run just like this platform is, I would have been broken in jail a long time ago. There is a problem, and I think no matter where we sit on this, whether we see a cliff in front of us or whether we see a mountain, doesn't matter. I think we all understand that whatever's going on here is unsustainable or insustainable. So the reality here is that there is a problem, and we need to figure out as much as we can how much of this is going to correlate with the events happening with tokenization and digitization, right? And I think it's going to work great hand in hand because I do believe that there will be a day that we're going to see some kind of a correction. Like, for instance, we know now we're seeing G7 GDP to gold ratio, which is the gross domestic product of the 7-member G7 group of nations in dollars divided by their reported combined gold holdings in ounces. The source of this is coming from the IMF. Or how about the BRICS GDP at 135,000 plus per ounce? This is the gross domestic product of 11 members BRICS nations in dollars divided by the reported combined gold holdings in ounces according to the source, Bank of International Settlements. You know, when you look at this information, you have to start asking yourself, what are we talking about here? You know, if you're looking at the breakdown of gold in ounces divided by the gross domestic product of the 11-member BRICS nations. This doesn't include Saudi Arabia at the moment that I'm aware of. So imagine this, $135,047 per ounce is the way they have this broke down here. You know, something is coming. I don't know what it is, but something is coming. And I do believe, and I have believed for many years, that the United States is involved in another bankruptcy. And that's what I believe the money printing was about. It's about pricing in the reset, a bankruptcy reset. I really do believe that on a global level. And you know what? Here's more information that may suggest that we are going to see some kind of a global reset. Listen to this quick news clip here from Amelie, who shares this that suggests that the United Nations has just been informed that they're bankrupt. The General Secretary heads also the World Health Organization. Now, what's interesting about this is I do know that the United Nations was just holding meetings in New York. Take a listen to this quick clip here.
So the alleged closed-door meetings that are going on is there's an education process for heads of state, UN employees, and what's really happening. Well, as of this morning, for the first time ever, the United Nations has been informed that they are bankrupt. You're talking about the General Secretary, heads of the World Health Organization. They're all there right now. Okay. So they've been told la-la stories from their deep state handlers for so long now. World Economic Forum, the funds will come out tomorrow, people, Rothschild or, Chinese people. And, don't worry, by Friday you'll have the money. And now it's Umbrella, promising them that they're going to have the money by today. But they did not know how bad it was.
And, apparently they're in real trouble, right? And so is the United States itself. So what comes of all of this? Yes, I believe gold will be a huge part of really providing the confidence as we move to a new system, some kind of a reset, some kind of a rebooting of the globe. We have to have it. I certainly believe it. At some point, you have to take the stress off of the United States dollar. And the only way to do that is either to, in my mind, alleviate the global reserve currency status or find another way to underpin the confidence of the US dollar. And maybe, just maybe, that's through mBridge. Maybe, just maybe, that's XRP Ledger as one of the pilots of mBridge, as James Wallace has certainly suggested in his interviews. And if that's the case, you could then back the US dollar, digital, be it wholesale or retail. You could back a CBDC wholesale buy all of the things that are tokenized on the ledger. You could use reserves from dollars from around the world. You could use reserves of all the commodities, hard and soft, right? Gold, oil. You could use corn, soybeans, wheat, all of it. You could use everything. You know, to me, that would be the safest way to underpin the confidence of a digital dollar going forward. And it's certainly a way to say we're not reliant on other countries like through a petrodollar agreement, which looks to be in the process of unwinding right before our eyes. One thing I find interesting about the mBridge and using these multi-CBDC bridges and platforms together is that we know that the countries that are working currently right now are really deeply tied with Ripple. We know United Arab Emirates has deep ties, and so does Thailand, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, central banks of China. We know that we can't make quite the deep connections with China that we can with the others just mentioned, but you have to wonder, where are we headed? Something has to happen for a solution. Then there was this here. And shout out to the person who put this clip. I'll just check in just a second. But this really is talking about the new ISO20022 system, which is a standardization of the messaging language that is out here. It's been around for more than a decade, but they're choosing it over the MX and MT message systems that are there to get a standardization in the financial world. Along with that standardization being said here in this particular article is that the website of Riksbank and the major banks is based on a system called Ripple. That's interesting. A lot of other things are connected to this, and debt burdened system will collapse. Well, that's what we're looking at with these numbers. Well, I looked into Riksbank, and the only thing I could find so far was this right here that talked about Ripple, which is right in this area, transactions using the cryptocurrency, and it says here Ripple, and then it goes on to say a very low energy consumption, which shows high energy consumption for Bitcoin does not necessarily apply to all cryptocurrencies. It shows the transactions and the kilowatts per hour or per transaction here. So you can see the energy is very low for that in comparison to Visa, MasterCard, Cash, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, right? So I couldn't find a direct connection that suggested what this had suggested here, the new ISO system, which you can read about on websites of the Riksbank and major banks, is based on a system called Ripple. I know for a fact that Ripple is a part of the ISO standard body committee, so we have to keep an eye on that as we move forward. Here's what we do know about Ripple. It is partnered with Volante, which has signed the largest banks in the world. We know the wire value processing is over $1 trillion. There's 800 million messages per day. They have the largest banks in the world working with Volante, which is a Ripple partner, right? So if you look at this right here, 70% acceleration and implementation for a leading transaction bank, right? Onboarding corporate clients in days, not weeks or months. Then you see this. Reducing time using Volante payments as a service, 50%. And then I want to go into 7 out of 10 banks, if I could just mute this in case it's a copyright issue, right? 1 million RTP transactions processed per month at a top 10 global bank, right? This is unbelievable what we're looking at here. 2 of the top 4 Canadian banks, 4 of the top 10 Mexican banks, right? The list goes on and on. 7 of the top 10 U.S. banks. And this is what we're talking about here. So as we see that there are troubles brewing as far as the United Nations and the U.S. on the debt clock, now showing separation between G7 countries and the GDP versus gold ratio to them and BRICS, something is happening. Showing the U.S. Treasury note, which I'm not aware of anything that's happened here. Are you? What is going on here? What about the Federal Reserve note? Is there a plan to bankrupt the Fed and introduce a new dollar? I don't know the answer. But what I do know is we better be paying very close attention to all of this, because if we're so narrowly focused just on crypto, we're going to miss it. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one.